Hello, everybody. I'm Rikki Smith. Welcome to Faith on Friday Presents. At Faith on Friday Presents, we're all about highlighting inspiring people, engaging topics, and small businesses. And while you're here, don't forget, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure to like the videos and share it with your network. And also like our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram. We don't want you to miss a thing. All right, y'all. Today, we usually have a longer intro, but this topic we need to jump into. First of all, y'all, please say hello to my new friend, Melissa Berger. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I know our guests don't know, our audience doesn't know yet what we're going to talk about, but we'll get there in a second. First of all, Melissa, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are located.
Sure. My name is Melissa Berger. I live right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. What am I? I'm a mom of a almost 20-year-old daughter. I have a beautiful 10-year-old golden retriever and a husband that keeps me laughing all the time.
Oh, sounds like the perfect life. Except for the
Well,
kids part, because they should be out and paying their own bills. That's just me. That's my joy. But Melissa, what we're talking about today is autism. What it is, why it is, who it affects, the whole thing. So first of all, tell us why we are talking about autism today, Melissa. How has it affected you?
Well, that's a good story. I'm going to try to condense it down for you. As simply this: my daughter was diagnosed. She was actually a very late diagnosis. She wasn't diagnosed until she was 16. It was during COVID. You know, COVID had many blessings and many challenges.
Sure.
For our family, it was an opportunity to discover that my daughter was autistic.
Wow.
She was struggling mightily with the lack of structure when school went to video or
Mhm.
virtual. There's the word.
Mhm.
And she really, had lost all of her coping mechanisms and all of her coping tools. And so as a
Yeah.
result, there was lots of anxiety. So initially we thought it was anxiety. She was seeing a therapist. The therapist said, this really isn't what I thought it was. I think that you need to go to a different program. And so to her credit, she didn't just continue to see Sophie. She said, look, we got to find somebody else. So we
Right.
got Sophie into a program where she met with two psychologists right off the bat. And
Mhm.
after 3 days, they came back with the assessment that they thought that she was high functioning autistic.
Wow.
Sophie was elated. She was
Yeah.
absolutely overjoyed to have a name for what she had been coping with all of her life.
Yeah.
And I felt like somebody had kicked me in the stomach because I
I can
couldn't believe that I
imagine.
had missed this.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. You said she was diagnosed at 16. Is
Mm-hmm.
that unusual?
It is and it isn't. Autism initially, many years ago, the studies were all done on little boys. And
Hmm.
so it's a diagnosis that is more easily or more readily acknowledged and noticed with little boys and young
Mhm.
men, I guess, although I don't know
Right.
that they get as many young men.
Mm.
Girls have different uh, manifestations of their autism in the sense that they're very good at masking. And what
Oh,
I mean by
wow.
masking is that they hide all
Hmm.
of the emotion and they figure out how to replicate the behaviors of those around them so they
Wow.
appear more like them.
Yeah.
In addition to
Wow.
that, yeah, and the stereotypical thing about little boys lining up their race cars in a long line or
Mhm.
lining up their trains in a long line. Little
Mhm.
girls' passion projects or passion interests tend to be things that maybe aren't viewed as being so linear or logical or fitting into an expectation or a norm.
Yeah. That's
And so
interesting.
it gets missed. And it isn't like I didn't try to figure it out. All through her
Sure.
elementary school years, I was asking the teachers questions and I was trying to understand why things weren't lining up. The
Right.
challenge is that she's bright. And so
Mm.
the teachers adored her because she was a good student, she was
Hmm.
helpful, she did
All
all the
the
things that a
things.
teacher would want.
Yeah. So you said that when COVID hit and she lost her coping mechanisms being virtual, what sort of things started to happen that made you think, okay, basically, what was Sophie dealing with that made you think something's different here?
I guess I would say general sort of tenor and tone. She was on edge. She
Mm.
was upset. I remember a particular Saturday afternoon, I was trying to help her put laundry away.
Mhm.
So I was folding, and of course, as her mother, I was doing nothing correctly. And she was studying for a history test, and she was really challenging. And of course, I didn't react well, and I started screaming at her,
Mm.
and because that's useful, right?
Yeah.
And after about 15, after I don't know how long it was, but I finally walked out of the room because I just knew that I wasn't helping.
Right.
And she continued to be upset. And so I did what I just sort of instinctually knew, which is I said, let's go, get your shoes on. And we got in the car and we just went for a drive. And
Okay.
we drove and we drove and we drove. And she started to, regulate and come down. And
Right.
she had been seeing a therapist. I asked her to talk to our therapist about what was going on.
Mhm.
She did. And then ultimately, there was an appointment that she asked me to come in and talk with the therapist too.
Yeah.
And I could tell that the therapist was, I won't say that she was in over her head, but she was clearly not sure what to do.
What was going on
And
here?
then she, gratefully, she came to me later and said, I think we need to do something different.
Oh my
But
gosh.
without structure, it was really
Mhm.
hard. And
Mhm.
without the ability to have a conversation face to face with a professor, because one of my daughter's challenges is that she hears things in a
Mhm.
way that is different than the way you or I might hear something. And so
Okay.
she has to circle around and ask lots of questions, and she has to, it's a classic thing of, okay, I didn't get that. Can you say it another way?
Right.
Can you
Sure.
say it another way?
Yeah.
Until the way makes sense to
Makes
her.
sense. That's so good. And then you said she got diagnosed. She was elated because she now had a name. I'm not crazy. This is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you felt like you got kicked in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know there are parents watching this who are dealing with children who they may not know are on the spectrum. And
Mm-hmm.
they're thinking, what is happening with this kid? So why was it that you got kicked in the gut as a mom? I know you said earlier, you're like, how did I miss this? What was going on with you?
Well, I think the reality is no parent is ready to hear that their child is autistic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as much as I wanted to be open-minded and I wanted to do everything I could to support my daughter, I had
Mm-hmm.
so many questions about what that meant for
Yeah,
future.
sure.
What does this label mean, and what is this
Mm-hmm.
going to imply? Because I didn't pick it up, that I didn't notice that there was something going on. I had little inklings along the way of things that
Right.
just kind of made me go,
A little weird.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but nothing that was solid enough that I said, okay, I know what this is. I
Mm-hmm.
only have one child. My
Mm-hmm.
reference point was only her. I didn't have another
Yeah.
child to say, oh, well, that's what that one's doing. That's what this
Sure.
one's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know, I pride myself on being a good parent and being attentive and having a
Mm-hmm.
pulse on what's going on with my daughter. And when it turned
Yeah.
out that there was this, pretty big diagnosis and I
Mm-hmm.
had missed it, um, it was a lot. And then there was
Yeah.
the
I
shame
bet.
of like, how did I not
Oh.
support my daughter better?
Yeah. Oh, the shame. Being somebody's mom is already tough enough. And then when
Mhm.
you feel like you've missed something or you shoulda, woulda, coulda, that blanket of shame covers you. When you said earlier, and I really like this because it's so honest, the stigma going forward, what it was going to mean for her. Because I'm sure a lot of us, we have a stereotypical idea of what autism is, what it looks like, and who it affects. How did those things play into your thought process at that time as well?
Well, I mean, what you're sort of describing is a stereotypical autistic person.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never seen evidence of the stereotype with my daughter.
Yeah.
Um, However, I had noticed that now that I know what they're called, that she was having meltdowns and that
Mm-hmm.
she was experiencing sensory overload and that she was struggling, but without a name and without a
Yeah.
context, I didn't know what it was. And
Sure.
so that made it challenging to support her. And, the my daughter wants more than life itself to be a stage manager on Broadway.
Oh, love
and
it.
and she has every bit of skill that she needs.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the challenges is the social interaction and trying to understand social and group dynamics and
Okay.
trying to figure them out. And sometimes it comes easy more. I won't say it ever comes easily, but sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it comes more easily, and
Sure.
sometimes it's more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's again, it goes back to that wanting the absolute best for your child
Of
and
course.
wanting them to be everything that they can be and have all the success in the world. I'm getting emotional.
That's
All the
okay.
success that they want in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know. I still don't know. I'll never
Mm-hmm.
know what that diagnosis, what the impact is,
Yeah.
and if it has to be an impact. The good news is I think the world is starting ever so slightly to kick
Mm-hmm.
the door open and start to
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that neurodiversity is a thing, and
I
that
like that.
neurotypical behavior, which is, the behavior I would describe you or I,
Mm-hmm.
but diversity includes, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia. I mean, a number of different diagnoses.
Sure.
And there are lots of people around that have those
Yeah.
diagnoses, you know.
You said something that I wanted to touch on because you said meltdown. Is a meltdown the same thing as like because I've seen 2-year-olds do what I would call a meltdown in the middle of Target. Is
Right.
is that the same thing? What is a meltdown?
No. Okay. So what you're describing in Target is a tantrum,
Uh,
because there's an object, there's something that
mhm,
has that child determined that they want it. And so whether it's a candy bar, whether it's a special toy, whether it's a stuffed animal, who knows what it is, but they're
mhm,
determined. And they're either going to give up because they, get the message that they're not getting it. And so they figure out how to redirect, or they
mhm.
get it. And so meanwhile, the mom or the dad or whomever is with the child wants the floor to swallow them up because it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's a tantrum. A
Okay.
meltdown is, I think the best way to describe it is that it's when I'm going to use autistic specifically here, when an
Mhm,
autistic person's um, daily experience overwhelms them in so many different ways, which I can give you
mhm,
lots of examples,
mhm,
that they hit a point where they're saturated and they can't take it anymore.
mm.
And so they basically fall apart. What fall apart looks like
Wow.
can be different things for different people.
Mhm,
It can be staring off in space. It can be the stereotypical rocking or slapping, or walking in circles, the things that we think of sometimes when we think of autistic
mhm.
people. It can be just lashing out, anger, any number of things.
Right.
But the precursor is that their sensory system, their nervous system, has
Mhm.
gone into fight, flight, or freeze, and they
Okay.
can't cope anymore, and they're done.
Wow. Does that happen at any given time, or are there specific circumstances? And I know that you probably cannot speak for every autistic person, but in Sophie's case, are there things that will trigger that right away?
Well, the trigger piece is curious, because
Mhm.
trigger may be the final straw, but the
Oh,
reality is that it's all right. So think of a solo cup, a red solo party cup,
mhm.
and imagine that the beginning of the day, that solo cup maybe has a drop or two of water.
Okay.
And as the day goes on, it gets additional put into it. So that comes from the sunlight, being too bright before they're ready to handle it, or
Okay.
it comes from the screeching noise of the alarm clock, or it comes from particular smells coming from the kitchen in the house or the bathroom in the house.
Mhm.
It comes from the sound of the dishwasher running. It comes from the sound of parchment paper or aluminum foil being crinkled. I mean,
Mhm.
the list is endless. And so you
Sure.
just keep adding all of those things into that red solo cup, and
Mhm.
eventually it levels out and it fills up. And now it's going to overflow with the next
Mhm.
thing that goes in. So they put on their
Ah,
clothes
okay.
and they don't feel right, or there's something scratchy, or there's a seam
Mhm.
that's not laying flat, or there's a tag that's bothering them.
Mhm.
All of those things add to that cup. And then when the cup is too full, there's nowhere for extra stuff to go. And then
Ah.
that's the meltdown.
That is such a great analogy, and you've made it so easy for me, and I'm sure our listeners and those that are watching to follow that analogy. So when that happens, as the parent, as the care provider, as a friend, What should we do?
Well, okay, so this is where it gets into the individual child and what their needs are, but some of the things that help are, first of all, getting them to a quiet place where the sensory input is low and there's not a lot going on. The next thing that might be helpful is a weighted blanket, to get some compression and weight on the body, which helps to sort of soothe and calm the nerves.
Okay.
If that's not possible, they now make these plushy animals with weighted tushies, and they weigh about 3 pounds. And so sometimes just that on the chest can help. What else helps? The biggest soother for Sophie is we get in the car and I just drive. And I literally have driven every loop around Boston, every variety of drives. You know, some drives are 20 minutes, some drives are 45 minutes, some are an hour and a half. It just depends. And when she's really at the height of a meltdown, all communication skills are gone. She can't hear me asking questions. She can't communicate. Literally, if it's gotten really bad and I need to know something, I will ask. And if she can, she'll take her phone and type a note to me and answer the question.
Okay.
I've gotten pretty good over the years of being able to read what's going on and to sort of second guess and sort of intuitively know.
Right.
But one of the ways that I know that she's coming out of it is that she'll start to speak. And then I know that we're coming through. The
Yeah.
thing that's really important to recognize for parents and for myself, because I forget this now and again, is that whole bit about questioning. Questioning doesn't do any good. Sitting in silence, being close, offering a tight hug, you know, doing what works for your child and trying different things, but recognizing that they're not going to remember what caused the meltdown. They're not going to remember, you know, what were the things all day that got there. They're just, they just know what happened. And so your job or my job is to just simply say, okay, let's get through it. And let's move on. And then maybe later I'm going to go back and think about what was different today than yesterday. But sometimes I have no idea.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there's that. Sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah.
You know, but that begs this question though, Melissa, with all the things that you're having to be and do with Sophie and trying to be there for her, how are you taking care of you? How should parents or friends take care of themselves in this situation?
You know, that's a really important question. I didn't do much, to be honest, for the first year and a half. Basically, I knew that we had a year and a half to get her ready to go to college, and she wanted desperately to go to college. And so I put my head down and I barreled forward trying to figure out everything she would need to be ready, which meant I didn't really focus on myself. And it wasn't until she was at school, and even though I was on the phone with her a lot, that sort of regular contact, that I started to realize that I was exhausted. Looking back, you know, and part of why I created what I did was I wish that I had support. I wish that I had someone who had walked the shoes previously, who could show me some of the ways to get through. A feeling of community, you know, knowing that I had other parents that were walking in a similar path that I was, that I could be open and honest and vulnerable with, because it's lonely, you know, it's very lonely, particularly when your child doesn't want you to talk about it. And so it becomes, you know, isolating.
Yeah, I bet. So moving ahead, because you mentioned what it is that you're doing now, tell us a little bit about your business, Melissa.
Sure. The business is called Thriving with Autism. And it really grew out of my two things. One is that I became a professional coach. And so I had all of this fabulous training and all this great experience coaching, but I wasn't sure which direction to go with it. And ultimately, I wanted to go in a direction that really provided service to other parents and provided me with something that I really cared about. And so I sat down and outlined the program. I had to have a conversation with Sophie to make sure that it was okay, because my story doesn't exist without her story. And when she gave me the green light, I went ahead and created this program. So basically, it's a 6-month program with 6 modules that cover all the various things that come up for you in the first year of your child's diagnosis. And it also provides group coaching and then additionally one-on-one coaching with me
Mhm.
to give you all the things that weren't available when I was going through this.
That is so incredibly valuable. That brings up this then. So, Melissa, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, continue this conversation, or really ask how Sophie's doing, where's the best place that they can reach you?
Sure. The best place, and it's a little bit confusing here, but I'll give it to you. It's Melissa K Berger, BERGER.com is the website. So it's Melissa with one L and two S's, middle initial K, and then Berger, BERGER.com.
Okay. And what are we going to see on your website, my friend?
Well, the first thing that's going to pop up is I have a free resource for parents that specifically is about meltdowns. And so it's I don't remember how long it is, but it's a chunk of information, but it's really a workbook. So it's an opportunity for you to read a question, think about it, write down answers as they reflect your child's experience, and then begin to put pieces together so that you can start to figure out if there are patterns. Maybe there are, maybe there are not, and better resources for helping your child. That's a little bit easier to find. That's available at meltdownworkbook.com. So you can get that as well.
That is so
And then
good.
you'll get a full explanation of what I do, and also a way to contact me to set up a time to chat.
I love it. Don't worry, everybody. If you didn't get that, all of her contact information will be in the description below. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share this content, and follow us on Facebook and like our Instagram page. Melissa, my friend, before I let you go, we got to play a game. This game is so simple. It's all about you. It's called What's Your Favorite? I'm just going to ask you some things, and you're just going to let me know which one of these things is your favorite. Are you ready to play, my friend?
Yes, please.
Let's do this. Okay, what's your favorite time of the year?
Fall.
I like fall. What's your favorite food?
Thai food.
Really? Is there a lot of Thai food in Boston?
There is actually a fair amount.
I would not have thought that. I like that so much. What's your favorite downtime activity?
Knitting.
Knitting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you took me completely off guard with that one. What's your favorite Olympic sport?
Gymnastics.
Mine too. I like swimming though too. I do like
I was
that.
going to say swimming, but gymnastics is
Yeah,
really
it depends on seasonal. Do you have a favorite winter and summer Olympics?
I don't know what it's called, but I really I enjoy watching. I think it's the pipe skiing, where they have to go, they snowboard up and down the pipe.
Oh,
I don't know what
okay.
that's called,
Me
but I think
neither.
it's really cool. There's all
Yeah,
the
it's
flying
fun
in
to
the
watch.
air.
It is definitely fun to watch. I like that. What's your favorite movie, Melissa?
Pretty Woman.
Nothing wrong with that. What's so funny? I like Pretty Woman.
I just because I can quote far too many lines.
Oh, that right there. I think we all have the movie where we can quote way too many lines. And finally, Melissa, what would you tell somebody about autism right now?